The morning sun of Nexus Prime cast prismatic light through the crystalline spires of the Grand Assembly Hall, home to the most powerful governing body in known space. Ambassador Zethkari of the Altarian Republic paused at the threshold, his ceremonial robes still unfamiliar after 2 decades of diplomatic service. The massive structure, larger than most space stations, housed representatives from over 300 civilizations across 17,000 light-years of explored galaxy. Today marked the 847th Galactic Assembly since the establishment of First Contact protocols, and like every session before it, one chair remained conspicuously empty. "The Terra System representative still hasn't responded to our communications," announced Chancellor Vext, her forearms gesturing with barely contained frustration at the holographic display showing the vacant seat marked with alien script. "That makes it. How many consecutive absences now?" "All of them," replied Trade Minister Colvin, his scaled hide shifting through subtle color changes that indicated mild annoyance mixed with growing concern. 847 consecutive no-shows. Not even a courtesy message declining the invitation. Complete radio silence. The Chancellor's mandibles clicked in a rhythm that those familiar with her species recognized as deep frustration. Their system was first catalogued and classified 37 standard years ago. Single inhabited world, primitive nuclear technology, crude chemical rocket propulsion, basic radio communications. By all standard protocols, they should have received our invitation packets decades ago. "Perhaps they achieved extinction?" suggested Admiral Crest-AL from his position at the Hegemony Fleet delegation. His voice carried the casual dismissal of a species that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Statistical analysis shows that 63% of species don't survive their atomic age. Nuclear war, environmental collapse, resource depletion, the usual progression. "Negative on extinction," reported Senior Scanning Officer Veltar, her technical appendages dancing across holographic control surfaces. Long-range deep space sensors continue to detect massive industrial activity, complex electromagnetic emissions across multiple frequencies, and what appears to be rapidly expanding orbital infrastructure. Energy output has increased by 400% over the past decade alone. They're not only alive, they're thriving. Then they're simply ignoring us? The Chancellor's voice carried a note of disbelief that resonated through the assembly hall. In 8 centuries of galactic civilization, no species had ever ignored First Contact protocols. In the far corner of the assembly, General Thakmor of the Dominion War Council leaned forward with predatory interest. His species had evolved from apex hunters on a world where hesitation meant death, and something about this Terra situation triggered every instinct he possessed. A species that possessed nuclear weapons and space flight capabilities but showed absolutely no interest in galactic politics. That represented either supreme confidence or supreme stupidity, and in his experience, stupid species didn't survive long enough to develop fusion power. "What exactly do we know about them?" he growled, his voice carrying undertones that made several nearby delegates shift uncomfortably. The central hologram flickered to life, displaying the complete intelligence briefing. Species designation: human, bipedal mammals, carbon-based, oxygen-breathing. Average lifespan 87 standard cycles. Homeworld designation: Terra, locally known as Earth. Technology assessment: nuclear fusion achieved. Basic faster-than-light capability observed through energy signature analysis. Extensive orbital manufacturing detected. Population estimate: 12 billion individuals. Government structure: multiple competing nation-states. No unified planetary authority. Military assessment: classification unknown. Unknown military assessment? General Thakmor's predatory eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. How is that classification possible? We've had observation posts monitoring their system for over 3 decades. The intelligence officer's voice carried a note of professional embarrassment. They don't broadcast their military activities like other developing species. No ceremonial fleet displays, no conquest announcements, no territorial expansion proclamations, no military parade transmissions. Standard protocol assumes developing species will showcase their strength as a form of primitive diplomacy. Our long-range sensors have detected what might be defensive installations, added technical analyst Morketh. But the energy signatures are unusual. Unusual how? Demanded the general. They're extensive, sir. Far more extensive than we've ever observed for a single-system species. The power generation alone suggests military installations that would be excessive for a species controlling dozens of star systems. An uncomfortable silence settled over the assembly hall. In 8 centuries of galactic civilization, every species had followed predictable developmental patterns. Achieve spaceflight, make contact with neighboring species, join the Galactic Council, participate in interstellar trade and diplomacy. The pattern was so universal that xenosociologists had built entire theoretical frameworks around it. The humans were an anomaly that didn't fit any established model. Perhaps they're simply primitive isolationists, suggested cultural advisor Zephlin. Some species require longer adjustment periods before accepting galactic integration. General Thakmore's laugh was devoid of humor. Isolationists don't build extensive defensive installations. Advisor. Isolationists hide. These humans are doing something else entirely. Chancellor Vex made the decision that protocol demanded. Send another invitation. Mark it as urgent priority. Include the standard incentive packages, technology transfers, trade agreements, cultural exchange programs. Perhaps they simply haven't understood the benefits of galactic membership. As the assembly moved on to other business, General Thakmore remained focused on the intelligence display, his combat-trained mind analyzing patterns that others had missed. A species that spent decades in complete isolation while building military infrastructure that exceeded normal parameters wasn't preparing for integration. They were preparing for something else entirely. And his warrior's instincts told him he would find out what that something was very, very soon. The transport shuttle Hermes emerged from the methane clouds of Titan's atmosphere, its stealth coating rendering it invisible to all but the most sophisticated sensors. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the reinforced viewport as Titan Station revealed itself. A massive complex carved directly into the ice moon surface, its angular architecture designed to mimic natural geological formations from orbital observation. For 32 years, this facility had served as humanity's primary intelligence gathering hub, its massive sensor arrays and quantum communication relays hidden beneath layers of frozen methane and water ice. From this remote outpost in the outer solar system, a team of fewer than 300 humans had monitored the activities of over 400 alien civilizations across 17,000 light-years of space. "Welcome back to the icebox, Dr. Vasquez," greeted Commander David Park as Elena stepped onto the observation deck. The veteran intelligence officer had spent more than half his adult life on Titan, watching the galaxy's secrets unfold through intercepted communications and long-range surveillance. His weathered face bore the marks of decades spent in artificial gravity, and his eyes held the peculiar intensity of someone who had seen too much classified information. "Show me the latest intercepts, Commander," Elena said, settling into her workstation. As director of xenological analysis, she had clearance for intelligence reports that would have caused panic on Earth if their contents were ever made public. The holographic display erupted with cascading data streams, communication intercepts, fleet movement reports, economic analyses, and cultural assessments. "We've got another invitation. Document came in on the standard diplomatic frequency. Same template as always. Galactic Council, Nexus Prime. Urgent diplomatic contact required for the advancement of interstellar cooperation." This makes it the 847th formal invitation we've received. Elena's expression remained neutral, but her fingers tightened slightly around her coffee cup. "And their current fleet movements?" 3 full Dominion battle groups conducting what they're calling routine training exercises in the Wolf 359 system. That puts them less than 8 light-years from our outer sensor perimeter. The Altarian Republic has increased patrol density along our theoretical border sectors by 40% over the past 6 months. Most concerning, the hegemony just finished their latest conquest campaign. The Kethlari system fell last week after a siege that lasted 18 days. Casualties? Elena's voice was carefully controlled. Complete extinction event. 17 billion sentient beings. The hegemony doesn't believe in prisoners of war, and their standard operating procedure involves sterilization of all captured worlds. Our deep space monitoring stations recorded the orbital bombardment in its entirety. Elena closed her eyes briefly, processing another entry in humanity's growing catalog of galactic atrocities. The holographic tactical display showed the true scope of what Earth's government had learned during 3 decades of careful observation. While the Galactic Council maintained its facade of civilized diplomacy, the galaxy burned with endless conflicts. 17 major wars, 23 smaller military campaigns, 9 confirmed genocides, and countless acts of systematic brutality disguised as interstellar politics. "Ma'am," interrupted Lieutenant Torres from the communications station, her voice cutting through Elena's dark thoughts. "Priority message from Mars Command. Admiral Morrison is requesting immediate authorization for the final production run. All shipyards are standing by for your decision." Elena pulled up the comprehensive intelligence analysis that had consumed her life for the past 5 years. The Dominion War Council was systematically expanding toward human space, their conquest pattern suggesting they would reach Sol System within the next decade. The hegemony showed absolutely no signs of slowing their genocidal campaigns. If anything, their recent victories had emboldened them to increase the pace of expansion. And the supposedly peaceful Galactic Council had failed to prevent, condemn, or even formally acknowledge any of it. The mathematical projections were terrifyingly clear. Humanity had perhaps 5 years before some combination of alien powers discovered Earth's true capabilities and decided to eliminate the potential threat. "Tell Admiral Morrison that authorization is granted. Full production run, all shipyards, maximum priority." "And Lieutenant." "Yes, ma'am." "Inform Admiral Morrison that I'm also authorizing the activation of Project Damocles. All hidden construction facilities are to begin final assembly immediately." Lieutenant Torres' face paled slightly. Even with her high-level clearance, Project Damocles represented technology that pushed the boundaries of human engineering capabilities. "Ma'am, that represents a significant escalation in our defensive posture." "Yes, it does." Elena's voice carried the weight of decisions that would affect the future of human civilization. "And based on current intelligence projections, we're going to need every advantage we can get." She activated her personal authorization codes and pulled up the classified files that fewer than 20 humans were cleared to access. Project Orion, the development of humanity's first true warships. Project Ragnarok, weapon systems based on technologies reverse-engineered from alien wreckage. The Prometheus Initiative, humanity's crash program to achieve technological parity with species that had possessed interstellar travel for millennia. For 30 years, while the galaxy had assumed Earth was a primitive single-planet civilization struggling with basic spaceflight, humanity had been preparing for the war that intelligence analysis suggested was inevitable. "Commander Park, prepare a transmission to the Galactic Council." Park looked up from his intelligence summaries, surprised. After 30 years of silence? What should the message contain? Elena smiled, but the expression held no warmth. Only the cold calculation of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. "Tell them we'll attend their next meeting." "And Commander?" "Yes, ma'am." "Tell them we're bringing friends." In the depths of space around Jupiter, hidden construction yards that had operated in complete secrecy for 3 decades increased their output to maximum capacity. The asteroid belt mining operations, disguised as primitive resource extraction efforts, began delivering raw materials at unprecedented rates. Mars orbital platforms, camouflaged as research stations, worked around the clock with the desperate efficiency of a species preparing for survival. And in a bunker carved from solid rock 3 kilometers beneath the Colorado Rockies, Admiral Rebecca Morrison looked at a number that would have terrified any alien military strategist if they had known it existed. 1,012 completed warships. The Terran defense fleet was ready for graduation day. The message arrived at Nexus Prime during the routine morning intelligence briefing, transmitted on an archaic radio frequency that most civilized species had abandoned centuries ago in favor of quantum entanglement communication. The signal was strong, clear, and utterly primitive by galactic standards, yet it cut through the sophisticated jamming fields surrounding the Galactic Council headquarters with disturbing ease. Chancellor Vex stared at the crude text display with mounting confusion and growing alarm. The message format was basic ASCII text, the kind of communication protocol that developing civilizations used before discovering proper faster-than-light communication methods. Yet something about its simplicity felt deliberately calculated rather than accidentally primitive. To Galactic Council Assembly, Nexus Prime Station. From Terran Diplomatic Corps, Earth System, Sol Sector. Message begins. We acknowledge receipt of your 847 previous invitations to participate in galactic governance proceedings. We formally accept your invitation and extend our gratitude for your patience with our delayed response. Official Terran delegation will arrive at Nexus Prime Station in exactly 72 standard hours for formal diplomatic contact and treaty negotiations. Fleet Admiral Sarah Henderson, Commanding Officer, Terran Space Command Defense Fleet. Message ends. The Chancellor's forearms trembled slightly as she read the message for the third time. Fleet Admiral? Intelligence Director Mordak, explain to me how a species we've classified as having basic spaceflight capability has military officers with fleet-level commands. Intelligence Director Mordak frantically accessed his comprehensive files on the human species, his scaled fingers dancing across holographic displays with increasing desperation. Ma'am, our long-range surveillance has never detected organized naval forces. No fleet formations, no military exercises, no evidence of coordinated warship construction. Our assessment indicated they possessed perhaps a dozen primitive chemical propulsion vessels for basic orbital operations. Then explain that message. Admiral Crestale's voice carried a dangerous edge that made several nearby delegates shift uncomfortably. His species had built their reputation on military intelligence, and being surprised by an unknown force was both professionally embarrassing and potentially catastrophic. And more importantly, explain why they're announcing their exact arrival time. General Thakmore rose from his seat, every predatory instinct screaming warnings that he couldn't yet articulate. No species announces their arrival time for first contact. Standard diplomatic protocol requires gradual approach, peaceful intention broadcasts, and permission requests for system entry. Perhaps they're simply unfamiliar with proper protocols? Suggested cultural advisor Zephlin, though her voice lacked conviction. Or, General Thakmore's voice dropped to a dangerous growl, they want us to see them coming. The assembly hall erupted in animated discussion as delegates from 300 species tried to process the implications of the human message. In 8 centuries of galactic civilization, no species had ever announced their arrival time for first contact. The very concept violated every established principle of interstellar diplomacy, which emphasized caution, gradual engagement, and mutual consent for all encounters. Prepare the standard first contact protocols immediately, ordered the Chancellor, her voice carrying forced calm. Single diplomatic vessel clearance, ceremonial honor guard, cultural exchange packages, translation services, and medical facilities. Whatever their social development level, we'll treat them with appropriate dignity. Ma'am, interrupted Communications Officer Velneth, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. We're receiving an additional transmission from the human delegation. Put it through immediately. The second message appeared with the same primitive simplicity as the first, but its content caused the assembly hall to fall into stunned silence. Additional message begins. Diplomatic escort will consist of Terran 7th Fleet Battle Group. Do not be alarmed by fleet size or configuration. Peaceful intentions confirmed and guaranteed. Repeat. Do not be alarmed. Escort is purely ceremonial. Fleet Admiral Sarah Henderson, Commanding. Message ends. The words, do not be alarmed, had exactly the opposite effect on every delegate present. 7th Fleet, whispered Trade Minister Colvin, his color-changing hide cycling through patterns that indicated severe anxiety. That implies they have at least 6 other organized fleet commands. How is that possible for a single system species? General Thakmore was already activating his emergency tactical networks, calling up his most experienced intelligence officers and battle analysts. Get me full-spectrum deep space sensors immediately. Maximum range all frequencies. I want to know what's approaching our system. Sir, we're detecting massive faster-than-light signatures at the edge of the system, reported Senior Sensor Operator Kethmar, her voice shaking with professional disbelief. Multiple contacts, bearing directly for Nexus Prime on a precision approach vector. Define multiple contacts. Operator. Sir, preliminary count indicates over 300 distinct vessels. And they're big, sir. Much larger than our classification parameters for single-system civilizations. Admiral Crestdale's normally composed demeanor cracked visibly. 300 ships for a diplomatic mission? That's larger than most species' entire military capacity. Sir, the sensor operator continued, her voice rising with panic. They're not following standard deceleration protocols. Proper faster-than-light approach procedures require gradual speed reduction beginning at this distance, but they're maintaining full velocity. At current approach speed, they'll arrive in... A new voice suddenly cut through all communication channels with crystalline clarity, speaking perfect galactic standard with only the slightest accent that none of them could identify. Nexus Prime Control, this is Fleet Admiral Sarah Henderson aboard the Terran defense ship Indomitable. Requesting priority docking clearance for diplomatic vessel and orbital parking coordinates for escort fleet. We estimate requiring space for approximately 1,000 vessels. Please advise on available berth assignments. The number hit the assembly like a physical assault. 1,000 vessels for a diplomatic mission from a species they'd classified as primitive. Chancellor Vex's hands shook uncontrollably as she activated the emergency protocols that hadn't been used since the Hegemony Wars 3 centuries ago. Around her, delegates from the most powerful civilizations in known space stared at displays showing an approaching fleet that could potentially conquer half the galaxy. General Thakmore's predatory mind ran rapid tactical calculations and reached a conclusion that chilled his warrior's heart. If the humans intended conquest rather than diplomacy, there was absolutely nothing the combined forces at Nexus Prime could do to stop them. The humans weren't coming for a meeting. They were coming for a demonstration. The first human ship materialized from hyperspace with a precision that defied everything the Galactic Council understood about faster-than-light navigation. Most species required multiple course corrections and gradual deceleration when dropping out of FTL travel, their vessels emerging with the characteristic energy fluctuations and spatial distortions of imperfect transition technology. The TDS Indomitable appeared exactly where it intended to be, its transition so smooth that several sensor operators initially dismissed it as a calibration error. "By the eternal stars of creation," whispered Admiral Crestdale, his voice barely audible as he stared at the tactical hologram displaying the massive vessel. "What in the void is that thing?" The Indomitable stretched nearly 3 kilometers from its angular bow to its massive engine array, its hull composed of some dark material that seemed to absorb sensor beams rather than reflect them. The ship's design was unlike anything in known galactic architecture. No sweeping curves or artistic flourishes that most civilizations incorporated into their vessels. Instead, every line served a functional purpose. Every surface bristled with weapon emplacements, sensor arrays, and defensive systems arranged with mathematical precision. It dwarfed the largest Dominion battleships, made the Hegemony's fortress cruisers look like escort vessels, and moved through space with a fluid grace that suggested technology generations beyond anything in the Council's databases. But the Indomitable was merely the herald of what followed. Ships began dropping out of hyperspace in perfect geometrical formation, destroyers that were larger than most species' heavy cruisers, cruisers that rivaled traditional battleships, and battleships that redefined the concept of space-based warfare. Each vessel bore the same angular, utilitarian design philosophy, their dark hulls creating an expanding constellation of military might that filled every tactical display with warnings and threat assessments. The defensive grid surrounding Nexus Prime, designed by the galaxy's finest military engineers to handle the largest known vessels, looked like children's toys in comparison to the arriving human fleet. Fleet Admiral Henderson to Nexus Prime Control. The voice remained calm and professional despite commanding what was rapidly becoming the largest military formation in recorded galactic history. Beginning fleet positioning sequence. Please clear all civilian shipping lanes Gamma through Omega for fleet maneuvers. Those shipping lanes service half the system, protested traffic controller Zefkol, his voice cracking with strain. We have over 200 commercial vessels currently using those routes. Understood, Control. We'll wait for civilian traffic to clear before completing our positioning. We have no desire to interfere with normal commerce. General Thakmore watched with growing horror and professional admiration as the human fleet arranged itself in a perfect sphere around Nexus Prime. It wasn't an aggressive formation. There was no massing of firepower, no targeting of critical infrastructure. Instead, it was something far more terrifying. Complete tactical dominance achieved through superior positioning and overwhelming numbers. Every approach vector was covered. Every escape route was monitored. Every strategic asset in the system fell within the engagement envelope of multiple human vessels. The positioning was so perfect that Thakmore's military mind recognized it as the work of tactical computers operating on a level beyond anything his species had achieved. "This is impossible," he muttered, running rapid calculations on his personal tactical display. Our intelligence assessments indicated they were a single-planet species with primitive technology. How did we miss fleet construction on this scale? Intelligence Director Mordak, Chancellor Vex's voice carried the strained control of someone trying to maintain dignity while watching their worldview collapse. Explain immediately how our surveillance networks failed to detect military construction of this magnitude. Chancellor, Mordak frantically accessed every intelligence file in his vast databases, searching for explanations that didn't exist. The energy signatures alone should have been detectable across dozens of light-years. The resource requirements for constructing vessels of this size would strip mine entire asteroid belts. The industrial infrastructure necessary. Sir, interrupted Senior Sensor Analyst Velthera, her voice tight with professional confusion. I'm detecting energy readings that exceed our classification parameters. Their power generation capabilities are producing signatures that our sensors literally cannot categorize. More ships continued to arrive in waves. Massive carriers that dwarfed space stations, support vessels equipped with manufacturing capabilities that rivaled planetary facilities, and specialized craft whose purposes defied easy classification. The tactical display updated continuously as new contacts appeared. 400 vessels, 600, 800, 1,000, a smaller vessel, sleek and clearly designed for diplomatic functions but still larger than most species' flagship vessels, detached from the Indomitable with fluid precision and began its approach to Nexus Prime. Nexus Prime Control, this is the Diplomatic Shuttle Washington requesting priority docking bay assignment. Fleet Admiral Henderson and Ambassador Williams are prepared for immediate presentation to the full Galactic Council. Chancellor Vex looked around the Emergency Command Center at representatives from 300 of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Beings whose species had conquered star systems, developed technologies that could reshape matter at the atomic level, and built interstellar empires spanning thousands of light-years. All of them were staring at tactical displays showing a human fleet that could probably conquer half the known galaxy before lunch. Docking Bay Alpha Prime is cleared for your arrival, she managed, her voice somehow maintaining diplomatic composure. The full council is eager to begin formal diplomatic relations. Acknowledged, Control. We appreciate your hospitality and look forward to productive discussions. As the shuttle approached the station, General Thakmore ran one final tactical simulation through his combat computers. His species had perfected the art of warfare across 3 millennia, had conquered dozens of worlds, had built their entire civilization on military supremacy and strategic dominance. Every single simulation ended with the same result. Complete human victory achieved in less than 6 hours. Chancellor, he said quietly, his predatory confidence replaced by something approaching respect. When they disembark in the assembly hall. Yes, General? I strongly recommend that nobody makes any sudden movements. Through the massive viewports of Nexus Prime, the human fleet continued its positioning maneuvers with mechanical precision. The final count stabilized at 1,247 vessels, the largest military formation in recorded galactic history, assembled for what they claimed was a simple diplomatic meeting. and everyone was beginning to understand with crystal clarity why Earth had missed every previous galactic meeting. They had been preparing for the final exam. Fleet Admiral Sarah Henderson was absolutely nothing like what the Galactic Council had expected from humanity's first representative. She stood barely 1.7 meters tall, shorter than most species' average height, with graying auburn hair pulled back in a practical military style and calm blue eyes that seemed to catalog and analyze every detail of the massive assembly hall with methodical precision. Her uniform was simple, dark blue with minimal ornamentation, bearing only rank insignia and a small patch depicting Earth's continents against the black of space. Beside her, Ambassador Lisa Williams carried herself with the poise of someone who had spent decades navigating complex political situations. Her dark skin showed the confidence lines of experience, and her silver-streaked hair was arranged in a style that suggested both professionalism and approachability. Unlike the Admiral's military bearing, the ambassador moved with the fluid grace of a natural diplomat. What truly unnerved the assembled delegates from 300 alien civilizations wasn't their unremarkable physical appearance. It was their complete and utter lack of intimidation. Here stood representatives of a species that had just arrived with the largest military fleet in recorded galactic history, walking among beings evolved from apex predators, species wielding technologies that could crack planets, civilizations that commanded star-spanning empires. And the two humans conducted themselves as if they were attending a neighborhood community meeting. Honorable Chancellor Vex, the Admiral Henderson's voice carried clearly through the vast hall without any need for amplification, her tone respectful but carrying an undertone of absolute confidence. We extend our gratitude for accommodating our somewhat delayed arrival to galactic diplomatic proceedings. Delayed? Chancellor Vex the managed, her forearms trembling slightly with residual shock. Honored Admiral, your species has missed 847 consecutive council meetings over the past 32 standard years. Yes, we are aware of the exact count, Admiral Henderson replied with the matter-of-fact tone of someone stating obvious information. Humanity required extensive time to properly assess the galactic political situation before committing to formal diplomatic contact and treaty negotiations. The word assess hung in the air like a barely veiled threat, carrying implications that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. Ambassador Williams stepped forward smoothly, her diplomatic training evident in every gesture. We deeply appreciate the Council's patience with our delayed participation in galactic governance. Earth's unified government required comprehensive analysis of interstellar political dynamics before authorizing official first contact protocols. Assess. General Thakmore couldn't contain his predatory instincts any longer, rising from his seat with scales shifting to aggressive display patterns. You brought over 1,000 warships to assess our peaceful diplomatic assembly? Admiral Henderson's expression remained unchanged, but her eyes shifted to focus on the general with the calculating gaze of someone who had studied detailed intelligence files. General Thakmore of the Dominion War Council, our comprehensive intelligence indicates that your military forces have conducted 14 unprovoked invasion campaigns in the past decade alone, resulting in the subjugation of 47 inhabited worlds and approximately 89 billion sentient casualties. Stunned silence filled the massive hall. The Hegemony Collective, she continued methodically, practices systematic genocide as standard military doctrine, having eliminated 17 distinct species in the past 5 years. The Altarian Republic, despite its peaceful diplomatic rhetoric, maintains the largest sentient slave trade operation in known space, with an estimated 12 billion individuals in various forms of bondage. The assembly erupted in shocked voices, denials, and demands for explanation, but Admiral Henderson continued with the relentless precision of someone reading from thoroughly verified intelligence reports. The Kepler Syndicate has developed and deployed biological weapons against civilian populations on at least 6 occasions. The Vegan Consortium has strip-mined 17 inhabited worlds, displacing over 200 million indigenous inhabitants without compensation or relocation assistance. The Tau Ceti Alliance operates forced labor camps, disguised as economic development zones. Chancellor Vex's mandibles clicked frantically as she tried to process the implications. How could you possibly possess such detailed classified information? We have been conducting comprehensive surveillance operations for 32 years, Chancellor. Every diplomatic transmission, every military fleet movement, every covert intelligence communication, every classified government document. Our monitoring networks have cataloged the hegemony's biological weapons development program on Kepler 186c, the Dominion's planned invasion of the Rigel system scheduled for next month, and the Council's own secret weapons research facility on Kepler 442b. The hall dissolved into chaos as delegates frantically denied accusations, demanded explanations for intelligence breaches, or sat in shocked silence as classified information was casually discussed in open session. Admiral Henderson waited for the commotion to subside with the infinite patience of someone holding overwhelming advantages in every possible scenario. The fundamental question facing this assembly, she said when relative quiet returned, is what collective action we take to address these systematic violations of civilized behavior. Trade Minister Colvin found his voice, his color-changing hide cycling through patterns of confusion and indignation. You cannot simply arrive unannounced and begin making demands based on alleged intelligence. We are not making demands, Minister, Ambassador Williams replied with diplomatic smoothness, activating the central holographic display system. Humanity is proposing comprehensive solutions to long-standing galactic problems. The massive hologram filled with detailed star charts showing fleet positions, trade routes, resource distributions, and what appeared to be real-time intelligence on military activities across dozens of star systems. The Terran government proposes implementation of a new galactic security framework, Williams continued. All aggressive territorial expansion ceases immediately. All sentient slave trade operations terminate within 6 standard months. Establishment of war crimes tribunals for species leaders directly responsible for genocide and systematic oppression. General Thakmore rose again, his scales now shifting to full combat display coloration. And if we refuse your proposals? Admiral Henderson looked at him with an expression that might have been pity mixed with professional assessment. General, our intelligence indicates your entire species controls 17 habitable worlds with a total population of approximately 40 billion individuals. The escort fleet currently positioned outside this station could terminate that civilization in less than 4 hours. Are you threatening us? I am stating verifiable tactical facts. The Terran Defense Fleet consists of 12,000 active combat vessels with full logistical support. Today's diplomatic escort represents less than 10% of our total military capability. The number struck the assembly like a physical blow. 12,000 warships from a species the galaxy had classified as primitive single-planet civilization. However, Admiral Henderson's tone softened slightly. Humanity strongly prefers cooperative solutions to military conquest. We propose establishing a genuine peace, protected and enforced by genuine strength. Chancellor Vex, the struggled to find words that could adequately address what she was hearing. What exactly does humanity want from this council? Ambassador Williams smiled, and for the first time since their arrival, the expression seemed genuinely warm rather than diplomatically calculated. We want precisely what this council has claimed to pursue for 8 centuries, Honorable Chancellor. We want sustainable peace. We want fair trade. We want all species to develop and thrive without fear of conquest, enslavement, or extinction. The difference, Admiral Henderson added quietly, is that humanity possesses both the capability and the determination to enforce those principles. The assembly hall fell into contemplative silence as 300 of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations gradually realized a fundamental truth. Humanity hadn't missed the galactic meetings because they were primitive or uninterested. They had been preparing for graduation day. 3 days after humanity's dramatic first contact, General Thakmore stood alone in his private command center aboard the Dominion flagship Conquest, staring at intelligence reports that systematically dismantled everything he had believed about warfare, strategy, and galactic power dynamics. The holographic displays surrounding him revealed a truth so overwhelming that his warriors' pride struggled to accept it. His species had built their entire civilization on military supremacy, had conquered 47 worlds through superior tactics and overwhelming force, had perfected the art of war across 3 millennia of constant conflict. None of it mattered anymore. "Display the Sol System reconnaissance data again," he commanded, his voice hoarse from hours of analysis. The three-dimensional hologram materialized, showing what human space actually looked like beneath their carefully maintained deception. Earth wasn't a single planet with primitive defenses. It was the nerve center of a fortress system that spanned from Mercury's solar collection arrays to Pluto's deep space monitoring stations. Massive orbital manufacturing platforms ring Jupiter like metallic moons, their industrial output capable of producing a complete battleship every 18 hours. The asteroid belt had been converted into the largest mining and construction complex in known space, with automated facilities processing raw materials on a scale that defied galactic economics. Mars housed training facilities that could accommodate millions of military personnel simultaneously, its surface dotted with installations that extended deep into the planet's core. The outer planets served as testing grounds for weapon systems that pushed the boundaries of physics. "Sir," reported his intelligence aide, Captain Vexcole, "we've completed verification of the human fleet capabilities. 12,000 active warships confirmed, with production capacity expanding to 1,500 new vessels per month. Their smallest destroyers outgun our heavy cruisers." Thakmore's predatory instincts, honed across decades of successful military campaigns, screamed a single message: absolute defeat. "How?" he whispered. "How did we miss industrial construction on this scale? They built everything on the far sides of planets, hidden from our observation posts. Used their moon to mask orbital construction. Buried manufacturing facilities kilometers underground in their asteroid belt. And their stealth technology." Captain Vexcole paused, consulting his tactical analysis. "Sir, our computers estimate they could position entire battle fleets within our home system without detection." Meanwhile, in the rebuilt diplomatic quarters of Nexus Prime, Chancellor Vextha was discovering the true scope of humanity's preparation for this moment. Ambassador Williams had provided comprehensive documentation of every war crime, every illegal military action, every violation of the Council's own stated principles over the past 3 decades. The evidence was overwhelming, methodical, and absolutely damning. The hegemony's systematic extermination of the Kethlari species, Williams noted, highlighting relevant files with holographic precision. 17 billion sentient individuals eliminated through orbital bombardment and biological weapons. The Council's official response was a formal letter expressing grave concern and a request for voluntary compliance with humanitarian guidelines. Chancellor Vextha's forearms trembled as she reviewed case after case of galactic atrocities that the Council had acknowledged, discussed, and ultimately ignored. We attempted to maintain diplomatic balance. Military intervention would have triggered larger conflicts. By enabling smaller genocides. By allowing the strong to systematically prey on the weak while maintaining the comfortable fiction of civilized governance. Ambassador Williams's voice carried no accusation, only the weight of documented fact. "What would you have had us do? We lack the military capability to police an entire galaxy." Admiral Henderson, who had been quietly reviewing real-time tactical reports from the Terran fleet, looked up from her displays. "Chancellor, humanity progressed from first-powered flight to interstellar travel in barely 1 century. Do you understand why our development accelerated so dramatically? Advanced technological innovation? Unity of purpose driven by necessity. When our species realized we were not alone in the universe, Earth's governments made a fundamental choice. We could join a galaxy that tolerated systematic atrocity and called it diplomacy, or we could prepare to change the galactic balance of power." The Admiral activated a new holographic display showing current Terran fleet dispositions across local space. "The Terran Defense Fleet wasn't designed for territorial conquest, Chancellor. Every vessel carries full medical facilities, engineering teams, humanitarian supply reserves, and reconstruction equipment. We're not here to rule the galaxy through military occupation. Then what is humanity's ultimate objective? We want the galaxy to govern itself properly and effectively." Ambassador Williams leaned forward, her diplomatic training evident in every gesture. "Humanity proposes complete restructuring of the Galactic Council with actual enforcement capabilities and real authority. Species that violate fundamental sentient rights face immediate intervention. No more committee meetings and diplomatic protests while billions die. And who enforces these new principles? Chancellor Vex the already knew the answer. Initially, we do. Until the galaxy develops its own effective enforcement infrastructure. That evening, in emergency sessions across dozens of homeworlds, species leaders faced an impossible strategic choice. Submit to human-imposed authority, or face the largest and most technologically advanced military force in galactic history. The Dominion War Council convened first. General Kreshtar, supreme military commander and architect of their expansion campaigns, reviewed tactical projections with growing despair. Complete analysis indicates they could systematically destroy our entire civilization, he admitted to the High Command, his warriors' pride cracking under the weight of mathematical certainty. Our most optimistic projections give us a 2.7% probability of military victory, and that assumes their intelligence estimates are deliberately conservative. What do you recommend, General? Kreshtar had spent his entire adult life in conquest, had built his species' galactic reputation on military superiority and tactical brilliance. The words felt like acid in his throat. Full compliance. Immediate and unconditional compliance with all human demands. Similar conversations occurred across the galaxy with predictable results. The hegemony's war machine, developed over millennia of successful genocide campaigns, calculated engagement probabilities and found them catastrophically inadequate. The slave-trading networks of the Altarian Republic realized that their profitable enterprises were about to be permanently terminated by forces they couldn't hope to resist. The Kepler Syndicate's biological weapons programs suddenly seemed pathetically inadequate against an enemy that could sterilize planets from interstellar distances. By the end of the Standard Week, 247 species had formally agreed to the new galactic framework and submitted to human oversight. 53 declared their intention to resist the new order. Admiral Henderson received the intelligence reports without surprise, her tactical mind having anticipated this exact distribution of responses. Phase 2 authorization requested. She transmitted to Earth Command through quantum entanglement communication. The response arrived within minutes, carrying the full authority of humanity's unified government. Phase 2 authorized. Demonstrate why we invested 30 years in preparation. The galaxy was about to receive a comprehensive education in why humans had missed every diplomatic meeting. They had been studying for the final examination. The Battle of Kepler 442b would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries, not for its strategic complexity, but for its brutal demonstration of overwhelming technological superiority. The engagement lasted exactly 47 minutes and 12 seconds. The Dominion had assembled their most formidable military force in over 3 centuries, 847 warships representing the combined naval might of 17 warrior species, each vessel crewed by battle-hardened veterans of dozens of conquest campaigns. They chose Kepler 442b as their defensive stronghold, a heavily fortified world surrounded by orbital defense platforms, gravitational mines, and enough concentrated firepower to repel any conventional assault fleet. They faced the Terran Third Fleet, exactly 240 human vessels. General Kreshtar watched from the bridge of his flagship Eternal Victory as the human ships approached in perfect mathematical formation, their dark hulls seeming to absorb the system's starlight rather than reflect it. No dramatic posturing, no demands for surrender, no ceremonial preparations for battle that had characterized galactic warfare for millennia. The humans simply advanced with mechanical precision. All ships, commence full assault, Kreshtar ordered, his voice carrying across 17 different communication frequencies. The Dominion fleet unleashed everything in their combined arsenals. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroid belts, quantum torpedoes capable of destabilizing molecular bonds, gravitational weapons that could crack planetary cores, all focused on the approaching human formation with concentrated fury that lit up the system like a newborn star. The humans didn't even reduce speed. Sir, his sensor officer's voice cracked with professional disbelief. Direct hits confirmed on multiple targets. No damage detected. Their defensive systems are absorbing 100% of incoming fire. Impossible. Focus all available firepower on their flagship vessel. 57 ships concentrated their combined destructive capacity on a single human battleship. The energy discharge was visible from 3 star systems away, a concentrated burst of annihilation that should have vaporized anything short of a small moon. When the brilliant light faded, the human vessel continued its approach without a single scorch mark on its hull. "Sir, they're not returning fire." General Kreshtar realized with growing horror that the humans weren't treating this as a battle worthy of their full attention. They were conducting a demonstration, a clinical presentation of technological superiority for educational purposes. Then the humans opened fire. Weapons that moved faster than sensors could track, energy beams that passed through defensive shields as if they were decorative light shows, projectiles that struck with the kinetic force of asteroids but with surgical precision that targeted specific ship systems rather than causing total destruction. In the first 60 seconds, the Dominion lost 73 vessels. "Terran fleet, this is General Kreshtar." He transmitted on all emergency frequencies, his warriors' pride crumbling before mathematical certainty. "We surrender unconditionally. Repeat, full surrender." The human weapons ceased firing instantly, their targeting systems disengaging with mechanical efficiency. General Kreshtar, Admiral Henderson's voice carried the same professional calm she might use for routine communications. "Please order your remaining vessels to power down all weapons systems and prepare for boarding operations. Medical teams are standing by to provide assistance with casualties." As human ships moved to secure the Dominion fleet with practiced efficiency, Kreshtar stared at his tactical displays in stunned comprehension. In 47 minutes, humanity had crippled the largest military alliance in galactic history while simultaneously deploying medical aid to treat the wounded enemy. It wasn't warfare. It was a comprehensive educational experience. Similar demonstrations occurred across the galaxy over the following 2 weeks, each one reinforcing the same fundamental lesson. The hegemony's impregnable fortress worlds discovered human forces materializing inside their shield perimeters through transportation technology that defied known physics. The slave markets of the Altarian Republic found themselves occupied by human marines who liberated billions of sentients with polite efficiency and immediate humanitarian aid. The Kepler Syndicate's biological weapons laboratories were seized by human specialists who neutralized decades of research in a matter of hours, then established medical treatment centers for affected populations. Within 14 standard days, organized military resistance to the new galactic order had ceased to exist. But the real transformation began in the aftermath, and it surprised even the most optimistic human planners. Human reconstruction teams didn't demand tribute, territorial concessions, or political subjugation. Instead, they built hospitals, schools, infrastructure, and communication networks. Former slave worlds received immediate humanitarian relief and economic development assistance. War-torn systems found themselves with human peacekeepers who actually maintained peace rather than exploiting conflict. Species that had spent centuries in mutual hostility discovered they could cooperate when no longer threatened by predatory neighbors. Chancellor Vex stood in the completely rebuilt Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, now equipped with human technology that prevented concealed weapons, detected deliberate deception, and ensured every delegate's physical safety. The new council possessed real authority, genuine enforcement capability, and the backing of a military force that had proven absolutely unstoppable. More importantly, it had developed something unprecedented in 8 centuries of galactic politics: actual effectiveness. The motion to establish mandatory education programs for developing civilizations passes unanimously, she announced, still amazed by the concept of unanimous votes on complex issues. "Commissioner Anderson, please assume the podium." The human representative, a former educator from Earth's Pacific Northwest, began outlining comprehensive educational initiatives for developing worlds. Around the hall, delegates who had once schemed for territorial advantage now collaborated on genuine solutions to galactic problems. "Remarkable transformation," Trade Minister Colvin whispered to his aide, his hide displaying patterns of genuine contentment for the first time in decades. "We spent 8 centuries discussing theoretical peace while tolerating systematic brutality. It required humans 8 weeks to achieve actual peace." In the observation deck above the main assembly, Admiral Henderson monitored proceedings while reviewing tactical displays showing human fleets patrolling trade routes, protecting colonial expeditions, and responding to natural disasters across 17,000 light-years of space. Her ships were busy, but not with warfare. "Admiral," her aide reported, "priority message from Earth Command. They're requesting timeline estimates for diplomatic rotation and fleet reduction." Henderson smiled as she watched the assembly hall, where former enemies worked together to solve problems instead of creating them, where the strong actively protected the weak instead of exploiting them, where 8 centuries of diplomatic failure had been replaced by genuine cooperation in less than 2 months. "Tell Earth Command we're staying until we're genuinely not needed anymore." "How long do you estimate that requirement, ma'am?" She looked at species that had been mortal enemies now collaborating on humanitarian projects, at trade agreements that benefited all participants rather than exploiting the weak, at a galactic government that actually governed instead of merely discussing governance. "Couple more years, Lieutenant. Maybe 3 at most." Her aide looked puzzled by the optimistic timeline. "That seems remarkably fast, Admiral." Admiral Henderson's smile widened as she watched a Dominion delegate formally apologize to a hegemony representative for past military actions, while both species worked together on a reconstruction project for worlds damaged in their previous conflicts. "Lieutenant, humanity spent 30 years preparing for war in order to achieve sustainable peace. These species have been attempting to achieve peace through diplomatic discussion for 8 centuries. Yes, ma'am. They just needed better teachers and more effective classroom management." Outside Nexus Prime, the Terran Defense Fleet maintained its vigilant watch over a galaxy finally living up to its enormous potential. And on a small blue planet 800 light-years away, the rest of humanity continued the patient work they'd started decades ago, building a universe worth living in, one comprehensive lesson at a time.